I'm Patrick Bailey with whiteboardcoder.com. Today is September 15th, 2016, and in this video I'll be going over three things. The first one, how to set up an HAProxy box on Ubuntu 16.04, which turns out to be very easy. Number two, how to set up the HAProxy box to serve two different URLs, and to have both of those URLs route between two nginx clusters, as you can see on this image here. And then finally, and most importantly, how to obtain SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt, and how to install them on the HAProxy box and get your and start using SSL certificates. And also how to renew those SSL certificates, because the SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt are good for 90 days, but you can keep renewing them. So with all that in mind, let's get started. Let me briefly go over my current setup. So my current setup, I actually have 4 nginx boxes running right now. 2 are going to be for foo.test.10 by 13, and then 2 are going to be for bar.test by .10 by 13. And you can see the URL, the IP address is locally here, 192.168.0.10, 11, 12, and 13. And so those are currently running. And I want to stick in front of an HAProxy box that's going to, the HAProxy box will list on port 80 and 443 and pass through, and those boxes, the nginx boxes, will listen on port 8080. So with that in mind, I just want to show you real quick what I have. So there's the first one. So first box for foo, the second box for foo, the first box for bar, and the second box for bar, just to show that they are there and they are running right now. Now, one thing I want to do real quickly is to show you the nginx configuration file I'm using on those boxes. Very bare bones, very basic. But here's the URL for it, and I'll put this in the show notes so you can copy and paste this if you want. But just to show you what I'm doing, and in fact, I can probably log into one of those boxes. Oh, I'm already in one of them. Just because it's probably easier to read on here. If this is the right box. It's not the right box. I think it's on 13 where I fixed it. There we go. Okay, so here you can read just a little bit easier. So nothing special going on here, but the one thing that's probably interesting to look at is this check. So if I actually go to /check, let me do that on one of the boxes, it will give me the word up back. And so that's just kind of to see if the box is alive, which the HAProxy box will use. It can hit that URL to see if the box is alive or not. Or I should say, be intended to be in the rotation. Because if it can't hit that URL because the box is down, it'll take it out of rotation. But also, if the box is fine, you can make this not return up so that you can take the box out of rotation, even though you can still get to the box. It's kind of a useful tool. And so this is interesting here because what I've done here is it'll normally just return 200. But if there's a file called /temp/temp check, if that file exists, it'll take this box out of rotation. So let me just do that real quick. Check, right? So if I touch that, which creates that file, now I get a 404. So I'll remove that. Okay, so that's the interesting thing. So just to note, that's how I am. Now let's go to our main box and start installing HAProxy and get that set up. Okay, so here I am logged into my HAProxy box, even though the HAProxy isn't installed yet. So on Ubuntu 16.04, it's really easy. So sudo apt-get install HAProxy. That's how complicated it is. Let's let that load. Okay, so that took about a minute or so to install, so not too bad at all. So it's on there, and the first thing I want to do is I want to tweak my configuration file. So out here on GitHub, I put a gist out there, and here's the URL for it, and I'll put it in my show notes. And this is an HA configuration file, but it's an initial file. It's not what we're going to end up with at the end. So this is kind of a good basic one. We're not doing SSL. We're not doing anything of that sort right yet. So I'll just actually copy this. So I can actually go click on the raw and copy this URL. Now you can do a double wget and pull this whole thing down. And so now I should have an HAProxy configuration file in my local directory. And I want to move it to, I'll overwrite the one that exists there, and etc. HAProxy configuration. So I'll just do that. Oh, well, it might help to actually move a file, right? There we go. Let's go look at it real quick before I reload it. So there's the global section, not too much interesting going on there. There's the default section, nothing too much interesting going on there. Some of the more interesting things here is one is the HAProxy stats page, which is a very useful page to have around. So what it does, I say bind and listen and run on port 9090, and then give the username and password admin and the password admin. So I can actually log into a statistics page. So it's kind of a simple page, but it's actually pretty nice. So let me actually show that first. Let me kill this, and I'll do a reload. So I'll do a sudo service HAProxy and reload. I could do a restart, but then I bring it all the way down and all the way up. I found out if I do a reload, I have the least amount of downtime because it's reloading that configuration file, but it's trying to do it in such a way that it's not restarting the whole HAProxy service. So reload should be good now. And so now if I go to that address locally on my system and hit port 9090, it should ask, I logged in here yesterday. Okay, it should have a pop-up, get you to log in, just old school pop-up, and you'd put in admin. And this shows you everything's connected. And right now everything's green, so life is good. But if I go over to one of my boxes and I touch that temp check file, which will cause that check URL to no longer respond with up. Oh, not remove. How about touch? So now the file's created, so now it should mark itself. It can't hit that URL. And in this configuration file, we will hit that URL, and we should see that now it's down. And that's caused by this. I guess I should have gone over that first, sorry. So there's your stats page, very useful. And here's your front end page. And so this is basically saying, listen, for everything on port 80, do this following. Here's the front end. And what I've said here is I said, I'm doing a check here for a host. And so if the domain is coming from foo.test.10by13.com, go to use, follow the rules for host _ foo. And the same thing for bar. So bar.test.10by13, go to host _ bar. And then those basically say, use the backend called foo if it's host _ foo, and use the backend bar if it's host _ bar. So basically, if it's coming on this URL, go to the backend called foo. If it's on this one, go to the backend called bar. Simple as that. And so here's the backend foo and how it defines it. So here you can see here's the two servers, and they're listed on port 8080, and they have a check. And the check is saying, go look at /check and use a regular expression string and literally look for a capital up. It has to start with a U and end with a capital P. If you're familiar with regular expressions, this is the start, this is the end. Anything else, it'll get rejected. So that's what it's looking for right now. And that's why it doesn't see that, and it pulls that one out of rotation. Now if I go remove that, in a second here it'll go yellow. And then another test, it should go green. And so now it's back in rotation. And that's defined by here, the default server, the fall and rise. Basically, there's a check in there. The default, I think, is every 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds, it'll check. And if it's down, it has to get 2 downs in a row to remove it. And if it's up, it has to get 2 ups in a row to add it back in. But you can adjust that. So here, actually, we'll let it go down 3 times before it takes it out. And then here's the bar. Same thing. It's just the different servers it's using. So pretty basic setup, not much to it. And we can see how that's working. Okay. So that's how you install Ubuntu. That's how you install HAProxy on 1604. That easy. Cake. Next, let's start going over the Let's Encrypt and the certbot and get that installed. Okay, before I get into certbot, I forgot to show one thing. So here is my foo.test 10 by 13 because the HAProxy box is working, so this is connecting just fine. And it's round robining, so I can see here's the first one, I reload it, there's the second one, first one, second one. And here is the bar.test. And so it's first one, second one, it's working just fine. So we basically got all of this working just correctly except for the SSL encryption. So it's using port 80 but not 443 yet. So that part is working. Okay, now on to certbot. Now, if you're interested, here's the URL for certbot. So you can go on GitHub and download it and figure it out and tweak it if you want to go look into it in more depth. I don't think you need to. But there it is, and that'll be in the show notes. Now, another probably more important website is the EFF. So there's a certbot.eff.org because they want everyone to encrypt. And so they've given you some nice little pull downs here. So you can come down here and say, hey, I am using HAProxy, and I'm going to do it on Ubuntu 16.04. You click there, and they'll give you instructions on how to install stuff. So depending on what you're doing, if you're doing nginx on CentOS 7, they'll give you some instructions here to help you install certbot and get it going. Just in case you're not doing it on Ubuntu 16.04. But let's get going. So it's really easy. So in Ubuntu 16.04, really, really easy. So all I have to do is sudo apt-get install let's encrypt. That easy. And let it go. Okay, so now we got that going. So it's installed. And let me share another gist I put up there. So here's a URL for a gist I put up that basically shows you how to run a let's encrypt command from the command line. Now, just in case you want to go there and copy it. Now here, I'll do it here. So let me start. There are many ways to get this going, but if we run this, it'll actually fail this first time. But it's important to know why. So if I do sudo let's encrypt, and to do cert only, because I only want to get a cert, and then I do server, I can set what server I want to use, and they actually have a staging server. That's very important to know, because when you're first starting out in testing, you want to use the staging server. And that won't actually get you a legitimate certificate. It'll get you a certificate, but it's not a legitimate one. But you want to use this for testing purposes as you're trying to figure out, because you're limited to, I believe, 20 new SSL certificates per domain name per week. Now, once you have them, you can renew them all you want. But if you're doing tests at first like this, and you're not using the staging server, you can run out of those 20 really quickly. And I'll do web root. And what this is saying is, the let's encrypt is trying to talk back. So it has to make sure that you actually own that domain name. And so in this case, actually, there's an address it'll try to go to. And it'll try to put a file there at that address so that it can read it. And so it's assuming that it has access to this folder and that it can write to it. Now, right now, it doesn't exist. But we're going to do the command how I normally do it. And then we do keep until expiring, which basically says keep this certificate. Don't renew it if it's still. You can renew it if it only has 30 days left, but if it has more than that, don't even bother renewing it because it'll do a quick check. Oh. Didn't write that down right. Maybe I'll just cut and paste and explain it all. How's that? There we go. So there's a cert only, there's a staging server, there's a web root, keep until expiring. It's going to output text. This -v is verbose, so it'll actually put out some verbose information. You don't need that per se. And then you actually put your email in, and this agrees to will actually prevent the pop-up that comes up and says, do you agree to our terms? You're just automatically agreeing to it. And then -d is your domain. What name do you actually want to get a certificate for? Now, if I run this, it should fail. Yeah, in this case, it fails because I have not installed nginx locally, and that directory doesn't not even exist. So what I need to do is go install that. Because in truth, what it's doing, it'll try to, in this case, I'm going to foo, it'll try to, from their side, go to foo.test and then hit, go to port 80. I know that's redundant, but it'll hit that. And then it goes to this place, .well-known Acme challenge, and then it'll actually create some unique ID over here. It'll put a file there with a unique ID, and that file will actually have a unique code in it, and then it'll try to grab that and confirm it has the same code. Now, in one of my other videos, I did that, but what I did is I actually put it on one of the boxes behind it. And because there's two boxes, you got a problem. Because which box is it going to hit? So one solution is you could shut one box off, take it out of rotation, and then use that one box, which can work, but you got two problems. One, now the certificate's here and you got to move it. And then also you have to update it every 60 or 90 days. And so you have to shut this down every 90 days. That's kind of a pain. What is a better solution, I think, is to run a small nginx locally next to the HAProxy box that it can talk to that only handles responding to Let's Encrypt. That's all it does. So with that in mind, we are going to install nginx locally next. Okay, now let's install nginx. But before we do get started, here's another URL that has an nginx configuration file that is for the nginx that's going to run on the HAProxy box. So there's the URL, and I'll have it in the show notes. And I'm just going to cheat and download that. So I'll click on the raw. I'll grab that URL. And I'll do a wget and pull it down. If I can actually copy the URL. Okay, there we go. Got it. Now I need to install nginx. But nginx, when you install it, tries to listen on port 80, like it should. But our HAProxy box is listening on port 80. So if you try to install nginx right now, you'll get a little weird failure in its configuration. So what you need to do is shut down the HAProxy box before you do it. Or service. So sudo service HAProxy stop. So we'll stop it. So it gives up that port. And let's install HAProxy. Pretty simple. Nginx. I meant nginx. There we go. Let's install that. Okay, now let's move over the nginx. So we'll do a sudo move nginx to etc. nginx.conf. So I'll overwrite that. And then we'll go look at it real quick and see what it's doing. So nothing too special about it. But if you come down here, you'll see it is listening on port 8888 because it needs to be listening on a port that the HAProxy is not listening to. And then what it's going to do is anything that's / well-known Acme challenge is going to go to the same route. It's going to go over here. And anything else it's not going to typically deal with. It'll just have some error pages, or should. Or if it tries to go to the base route here, it's going to return a 404. So pretty much this is only for responding to Let's Encrypt paths, as you can see right there. So we will kill that. And I'll do a sudo service nginx reload. So now I'll actually use the new configuration. And if I go to that box, I go to 99 and I go to 8888, I should get a 404. There we go. So that tells me that nginx is there and listening and doing what we expect it to do. Now next, I need to go actually configure my HAProxy configuration to talk to the nginx box, only for the Let's Encrypt paths. Okay, now for HAProxy configuration. So here's a new configuration. Here's the URL, and I'll put that in the show notes. But you can go here and download this. So this has a few more tweaks to handle the Let's Encrypt traffic. So I'll click on the raw, and I'll download it myself. I guess that keeps me honest. It makes my examples actually work, right? Okay, so there it is. So I'll do a sudo move HAProxy configuration to etc. HAProxy configuration. And let's go look at it real quick. So none of this has changed, same as before. The stats page hasn't changed. Now what has changed is the front end a little bit. So now we've defined a path. So we can actually do path beginning And -I think means it's not case, it's case insensitive, I think. And so basically here it says this, well, if something comes in and it's on /.well-known Acme challenge, which is the Let's Encrypt stuff, it's going to assign it the variable within HAProxy is Let's Encrypt. And if that's the case, we're going to say if it is Let's Encrypt, go to the Let's Encrypt backend. So basically anything, doesn't matter what URL comes on to this HAProxy box, go to the backend. So they actually it'll serve foo and bar and whatever else we want to add in there later. Now if we go to the backend, I've made it very bare bones, very basic, very nothing to it right now. All it will do is it just goes to 888. It just forwards it, simple as that. So not much to it. So let me save that. Well, not save it, but close out of there. And I'll do sudo service HAProxy reload. Oh, it was not. I stopped it. So let me start it again. Start. Okay, so now we should be good. Now we are listening on. We're still listening only on port 80. That's another key part. Let's Encrypt right now, when it comes into check, we'll only check on port 80. It won't come in and listen on, it won't check on 443. So no matter what, you need to leave port 80, that path, the .well-known, needs to be open for port 80. And we'll get to that nuance a little bit later here. Okay, but let's go rerun that command we had before with the staging server. So there we go. So there's a Let's Encrypt cert only. There's a staging server. It's going to make a file at this location. It'll make the file at .well-known, Acme, all that. And okay, then you put your email and the URL you want to do and the agree to. So this should automatically work. So if we run this, hopefully we did it correctly. Now I'm doing verbose, so you're getting a lot of information here that you don't need if you don't do the /v. But I was doing some testing, so there we go. So it's made it. It gave me, said if I lose my credentials, I can email them back, and it has made it, even though it's a fake account. And so let's go look at it. So I can do sudo tree, etc. Let's encrypt, and I can do live. And I can see those are the certificates it just made. And they're actually legitimate. Well, I shouldn't say legitimate. They'll kind of work. I mean, they're kind of like self-signing away, but if you try to, you'll get the little crossbar if you try to use them. But they're there, and they're working. Now, the next thing I want to show is how to use, I have a script that'll do the whole thing for you, so you don't have to bother with this. But it's nice to do tests like this to make sure that your whole system is talking back and forth, and a Let's Encrypt can actually hit there, and you're only using the staging server, so you're not wasting your 20 cert limit a week, I believe. But now what we got to do, because I had some trial and error on this, if I go into the Let's Encrypt folder here, we'll see there's all this stuff. And, sudo tree. So there's all these keys that get made in here. So there's all this foo stuff. So I need to actually kill all this foo stuff one by one. If I don't, the way my script works, it gets a little confused because it sees a certificate there. And so I just, to make life easy, I'm just going to wipe things out. So I'll do, let's see, sudo remove -r live foo.test.10by15.com. Okay. And there's also archive. And there's a couple more, I believe. So let me do sudo find here iname foo.test. Renewal. So make sure you wipe them all out. Hopefully I got them all. Let's see, renewal. Oh, conf. .com.conf. Okay, hopefully that got rid of all of them. Okay, so next let me show you the script I've made, which will make life very simple. Okay, now on to tweaking, showing you the script I made that will get all your SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt. So first of all, here's a URL that I went to, and I'll put this in the show notes. This is someone else's script. In fact, let's see what's their name here on GitHub. This is Mitch. And so they put together a great script, and I just basically took a lot of the stuff they did and tweaked it. And so over here you can find my script, and here's the URL for my script. And so you can go download that. I'll put that in the show notes. And here's the script. So I'll go down and I'll download it myself. So I'll get the raw and I'll get the URL again. And I'll grab it. And I don't intend it to be there all the time, so I will move it. I'm going to move it. So I will do a sudo move. Oh, I did it wrong location. Let's go to my home directory. Let's grab all that. I'll do a sudo move LE renew HAProxy to user local sbin right there. That'll work. But then I need to make executable. There we go. Now let's go look at it real quick. Show you what's going on. So basically it's set up like this. You can put any number of domains you want in there. That's how I set it up. So let me go tweak it to put my domain names in here. We're doing foo test 10 by 13 and bar test 10 by 13. So you can put as many domains as you want in here. And then you got to put your email in there, of course. And that should be just about all you need to do. And it's going to use the web root that's usually used by nginx. So it's going to go try to put that file there. It's going to use 30 days as the limit. So it won't renew the certificates until they're down to less than 30 days. It'll also reload the HAProxy configuration if it has an SSL certificate updated. Another thing here, and I'll run this and let it fail, is it does need a command called BC, which is a calculator that the script is using. So it does a quick check to make sure that's installed, which usually it's not installed. So we'll have to fix that. And then what it does, it goes and it looks down into it goes domain by domain and sees if you have the keys. If you don't, if you have no keys, which is what we have right now, we have no keys because we erased them, it'll actually go grab them. It'll grab them and install them. So the nice thing is you can use this script the first time, put your domains in there, it'll grab all of them that you need. And then once they're there, what it has to do is it has to actually take the full chain and the private key and smash them together. So it needs those smashed together. That's how the HAProxy reads it. And then if you go down here, you'll see that it's going to make that combined file, and it's going to stick it in the combined file. I'm going to make a folder here called etc. HAProxy certs, and then that's where all the combined certificates are going to be. It's not where they're going to be checked. The checked ones are still going to be where the live is, where Let's Encrypt expects them to be. Okay, and then if it's not there, it'll check if you do have certificates, it'll see how long they have left to go. And if they're within their allotted time period and they're fine, it's just not going to bother. It'll say, hey, you got so many days left, they're fine. But if it's getting down to those 30 days, it will go through and renew them. So you can rerun the script every single time. It'll try to renew them. And then it'll smash them together. And if it needs to, it reloads HAProxy. So simple enough. So there we go. So now I should be able to run them. Now let's see if we can. I go to the right place. I kind of forget that's there. So let me just go run this, and it should go grab both the certificates I need. Oh, but of course I don't have BC installed, so it's giving me that error. So let me install BC. I can probably do it without BC, but I'm just copying someone else's script that used BC, and I'm being lazy. Okay, let me try now. So now we'll renew it. And so now it's getting the foo. Oh, that example. Oh, I didn't save it. I did that, didn't I? I edited it and didn't save it like a dummy. foo.test.10 by 13. One of these days I will actually save things. Okay, now let me save it. Looks good. Let me run it now. There we go. Okay, the foo's been created. Now it's trying to make the next one bar. So that worked. And it made the bar. So good. And it reloaded HAProxy. So if I go sudo tree, let's see where I put that. I should see there's bar and there's foo. So they're there. And for the other one, I should see where it stuck them together on the etc. HAProxy. And I can see there's the certs there. There they are. So the next thing I need to do is I need to actually go update my HAProxy configuration to actually utilize those certs. So let's go do that next. Okay, so here's the URL for my gist for my final HAProxy configuration. I'll put that in the show notes, but there it is. And so you can go down here and I'll copy it. I'll go do the raw thing again. And I'll do a wget. Before I do that, let me see if it's there. Nope. Wget. Grab the whole thing and move it. Now let's look at it real quick before we restart it. Reload it. Everything here is normal. Normal, we haven't changed anything. But if we go down here to the front end, this is where we change things. So we're still listening on port 80, but we've added the ability to, let's go back up. There are some changes. If I go to the top here, we've added some stuff for SSL. This is very generic SSL, not a whole lot there. It's saying what options it's using and not using and what ciphers it is and isn't. And this is kind of bare bones. Should work for you. You may need to tweak it based on whatever your needs are. That's there. Everything else is normal. Now on the front end, we're listening on port 80, but we're also listening on port 43. And on that, we're doing SSL. And then we use our two certificates here. So we got to list them each out. So there's the first certificate right there. And there's the second certificate. So we're using those. And we still have our let's encrypt. We still have our host defined. But then down here, we've added something new because we no longer want to support port 80 for foo or bar. We don't want to use that at all. We want to use 443. So we'll let them come in on port 80. But here's this redirect. This redirect will take everything and immediately redirect it from 80 to 443. So if you come in on foo.test.10by13.com on port 80, it'll immediately switch you over to the same URL, but on port 443. But it does have one exception, because Let's Encrypt will not hit you on 443. It'll only hit you on 80. It basically says you don't need to do that for the Let's Encrypt rules, which is this path. So it doesn't matter what URL, for that path, it will stay on port 80. And so, yeah, those are the changes. This is probably the big important one right there. Okay, so let's stop that. So sudo service, HAProxy, reload. So now we have the new settings, and we should be good. So now if I come over here and I test foo, you can see it immediately jumped over to 443. So now I have the secure website. And look, I have a nice little green lock there. If I click on it and I go to details, I can see that everyone's happy, and I should have let me click on view certificate. I can see that I have a Let's Encrypt authority. So it worked. And so we're actually using it just fine, and life is good. Now if I go to bar, and I go to HTTP, it bumps over to the 443 version. So it moves you over there. So it's exactly what I want. Now if I also, let me open an incognito window so I don't mess this up. If I do foo.test, but I go to that URL, the path, the .well-known, it should not move me. So that way that I know the Let's Encrypt guys can still get in. Now if I change this ever so slightly, now it's a different URL, it should bump me to 443. And it does. I mean, nothing's there, but it works. So let me close that out. So now we got everything we want. So now this is listening on 80 and 443. 80 for the path. 80 works for everything, but it bumps it over to 443. But also 80 will stay, 80 with the Let's Encrypt path will actually go to the local nginx box, and that will handle all the responses to Let's Encrypt that they may ask for when we're renewing certificates. So we are all set up. And now if I go back here and I try to rerun, let me just rerun my tool that I made. It'll say, I should probably remove that, it's kind of boring. It'll say, okay, I may go tweak my script so it's not putting this information out if BC is installed. But here it says, foo has 89 days left, and bar has 89 days left. So it says, you're good to go. So it's working. So the last thing I have to do is to go set up a cron job, which is bare bones easy. So let me just do it. So now I can go to here and do sudo vi etc cron tab. There we go. And I'll just make a new rule here at the end. And so in my case, I'll say 10, 11, star, star, star. And so this says every day of every week of every month at 11:10 a.m. machine time, whatever my machine is on, and I happen to be on mountain time right now. Run this, and we'll run it as root, and we will run user local sbin. Let me copy that because I can see myself screwing that up. Sbin. Okay, so just making sure that I'm copying that correctly. Okay. Nearly done here. So let me paste that. Okay, so that should run every day at 11:10. Now, I've changed the way I've done things. Usually I would run things at night, but now I've changed my mind. The way that we do things nowadays, I tend to run them during business hours, so that if I see that there's an issue, I can respond to it. Knowing that we have a more robust system that's, we can fix our system rather quickly. So, I used to run things at night all the time, now I run in the morning. Okay, so that should run. And so every day it runs, the counter will count down. So hopefully 60 days from now, it will run again and renew everything. So I guess I'll have to keep you informed when that happens. So I'll put a written note to myself to go check again in 60 days and make sure this actually works. But there you go. So there's the end of the video. So we've got everything set up. We have our HAProxy box routing between two URLs, and those URLs are going to two different nginx clusters. It's also handling port 443, and it's handling the SSL certificates. And also, because the nginx box locally located on the HAProxy box, it's able, through a simple script, to talk to the Let's Encrypt guys and to renew the scripts. So there you go. All done. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a like. To subscribe, just click the subscribe button. Also, you can follow me on Twitter under the handle @whiteboardcoder.com. View any code I may have thrown up as a gist at GitHub under the username PatmanDenver, or check out my blog site at whiteboardcoder.com.